introduce the next panel. It's called Design for Good Dialogue. And in this panel, we'll have Cecilia Brenner, who's the Manager Director for Design for Good, and also Sandy SPEICHER, who's the design leader and former CFO of IDEO. Enjoy.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. You know, we come here to Davos to talk about the future of our world. But yet, for billions of people, the future has already been written. Whether they have clean water, or access to quality education, or the ability to protect their own health for the loved ones, and also the environment that they live in. Design for Good exists in that gap between global commitments and daily lived realities. My name is Cecilia Brenner, and I'm the CEO, Managing Director of Design for Good. And together with Sandy, we will have a dialogue today on what it means to create lasting impact towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. But first, I will show you how design is used to create that global, worldwide collaboration impact. As many of you know, 10 years ago, United Nations published the Sustainable Development Goals, 17 of the greatest challenges facing our planet and society. And they were all going to be aimed to be accomplished by 2030. Unfortunately, we are far beyond making that. And that is where Design for Good comes into play. Design for Good was founded through the Alliance members 4 years ago as a shareable alliance to experiment, to learn, and to also help advance the SDGs by the help of design. And at our launch, we had these 10 founding alliance members, and today we have grown to over 16 of the world's largest organizations collaborating, working together across teams to create lasting, measurable impact on the ground. So today we are convening over 2,000 designers across 30 countries, working together with local NGOs and foundations to create open source products and services to advance the United Nations SDGs. And as you can see, we already have 32 active projects globally. Some are already implemented and some are in development. We are still learning, but today I wanted to share a selection of guiding principles that are proving to be most effective. So first, we always design with, not for, development organizations and affected communities. And that's why we never invent a challenge that we create alone. Second, we never work alone. We build cross-functional, cross-organizational teams of diverse corporations, partners, and experts, because that's how you build lasting impact. Third, we invest heavily in training. Through the partnership of Royal College of Art in London, we upscale and make sure that the designers actually know what it means to design for social and environmental good. Fourth, we solve intellectual property upfront. So anything we do and create is open sourced and can be reused for the greater good across the world. And last but not least, we implement our ideas, our innovations back to the local NGOs and the charities to help them further track the impact and scale. So how are you doing, you might ask? Well, we're still in early days, but the results are looking quite promising. So our first cycle, we started to tackle the United Nations SDG, water and sanitation. And we have already improved hundreds of thousands of lives, from hygiene and sanitation projects to regenerate water systems and wetlands around the world. And in our current cycle, where we're focusing on SDG 4, quality education, combined with water sanitation, we aim to improve over 2.5 million lives by 2028. And to show you a little bit about the work on the ground that we're doing, I would like to take you to Tanzania, Africa, and the work that we do with Foot Forward Fund. And this is a project where we are educating girls on menstrual health. And why, you might ask? Because according to United Nations Women, girls miss still 1 month of school every year because of their period. So together with Food for Fund, we started to create a menstrual health toolkit. And it's a booklet where you talk about how important it is, and everybody goes through this, if you are a female, your menstrual health journey. And we also developed true and false cards to kind of get the dialogue going, to make sure that they are interacting not only with the teachers, but also with each other, to make them feel more period positive and stay in school. So this is a little bit of a story from them. So our impact to date is that we've been able to educate over 10,000 girls through this menstrual health educational toolkit in this region in Tanzania. And we hope that we have another 3,000 students educated by the end of this year. Well, I was talking and referring to open source just a minute ago, and this menstrual health toolkit has also already been open source free licenses by another organization called GLS. So we have already an estimate that over 2,000 girls and boys will be educated in 4 schools in Uganda. So not are we already extending, the regions, but we're also making sure that boys also gets the education. So a key learning from us is basically, how does menstrual health becomes a catalyst? Well, I believe that when you look at design has the power to transform taboo topics like this into trusted and playful tools and enable girls to stay period positive. And we do that by listening in and really valuing the experience of these girls. Next, I want to stay in Africa, but I would like to take you to Kenya, and the work that we're doing with water starters to increase access to safe water. And why, you might ask? Well, according to UN Water, over 4.8 billion people could be at risk if the water quality is not improved by 2030. So together with water starters, we created and launched an app, and it's about actually maintenance of the water app to make sure that the water remains safe in this region. Here's a little story. So our impact to date is that we have been able to give 14,500 people in this region in Kenya affordable drinking water through this app. And we estimate another 50K by the end of this year, moving up to over 1.5 million people by the end of 2030. So key learning here for us is really when you create open systems like this, and when they are co-designed with local communities and enabling local actors to actually maintain and monitor, that's the only way where sustainable water access can be achieved. And the last project I wanted to show you today is in Dominican Republic. And it's the project that we're doing with WASH Foundation to teach children the importance of hand hygiene to your overall health. And why, you might ask? Well, according to UNICEF, 2 billion people still lacks basic hand washing facilities with soap and water, and even much more an awareness of the importance of washing your hands. So together with WASH Foundation, we created a simple, universal, also biodegradable flip book. And it's a very playful, engaged tool to get them inspired to wash their hands. Here's a little story. So today our impact is that we have been able to educate 2,250 children about hand hygiene, and the estimated impact that we will double that effect within this year. But that's not the most important learning about this project. We've been able to even track change of behavior, because at the end that's what you want to reach through this tooling. So 50% increase in behavioral change, and it's quite significant if you're looking at children's hand washing behavior before eating. And a key learning from us is that when you create such a simple, quite universal, independent communication tool like this, and when we design it around children's routines and their local context, that is making it more adaptable to culture, but obviously also literacy levels. And that's how you make WASH education become a habit. We didn't stop there with WASH Foundation. They actually stayed with us in the education cycle where we are now, and they have decided to tackle another area in this whole ecosystem, meaning teachers. So with them, we are currently developing an app enabling the teachers to share lessons learned and to be able to educate more children around hand hygiene in this fun way. So we estimate that we have around 6,000 children to change hand hygiene behavior by the end of 2028. So as you can see, Design for Good is a network of networks. We bring together world-leading design organizations with local partners, NGOs, to create lasting impact through design. And if you're interested to get involved, we are having a webinar on the 12th of February. You can scan it here to get involved. If you are a local NGO or a charity, or you're working for alliance members with a design group, please reach out. Because we are on a mission. As I said, we have been... your head is blocking. We're on a mission because as October 2026, we will start our 4-year mission where we will be designing for people and planet health, SDG 3 and SDG 13 combined, with the ambition to reach over 10 million lives by 2030. And why people and planet health, you might ask? Well, these are two deeply interconnected, but equally critical for sustainable development. And obviously, you cannot have a healthy planet without healthy people or vice versa. So we wanted to tackle this at the same time, to find that interconnectedness within systems. But that makes also global collaboration essential to deliver these meaningful, sustainable solutions at scale. Because if one thing that I've learned, working through design has taught me is this: lasting impact never comes from one organization, one discipline, or one leader. It comes from truly collaborating across disciplines, across borders, and across perspectives. And to look and explore a little further what that means in practice, I will go and sit down, and join me in the dialogue is Sandy SPEICHER. She is a in our board of trustees at Design for Good, but also a former CEO of IDEO, working in decades for design, leadership, and impact, and is a true believer of the design as a force for good. So, Sandy, tell me, what is your biggest gap in terms of global commitments and this daily lived realities?
Well, thanks, Cecilia, and thank you to the World Women Foundation for having us here today. Thank you for that presentation. I feel like that was such a great grounding into the conversation about the ways that design can help advance the progress that we're all hoping to create in the world. I love the way you started the presentation talking about the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the commitments that countries and companies and all these different players around the world have made. And I think a lot of us know and feel the gap between that level of commitment and what's happening on the ground. Even here at Davos, we see the conversations are shifting. And we're not as grounded in the question of the progress for all people as we are in some of the other advancements that are happening in the world right now. So it is important for us to keep talking about what is happening between the goals that we have, the progress that we want to make for the health and well-being of people all around the world. One of the things that seems to me the biggest gap is the speed at which we can actually create that progress. We set these goals a long time ago, and it takes so much time to see the kind of progress that we wish to see. And so that is a place that design can come in. You know, design has a lot of skill, like there's superpowers of design, and I think you did a nice job laying that out, where co-creation on the ground can help not just advance the creation of solutions, but also help the community take on those solutions themselves. And that kind of work is what can help accelerate the speed of progress that we're looking for. So what I wish for is speed, speed, and how do we go about that? I think that we can't just wait for big organizations to take on the progress that we're looking to create through the Sustainable Development Goals. What we need are thousands and thousands of organizations working on the ground, creating, as you started to share with some of these examples, again and again, a million times over all around the world.
Yeah.
What about you?
Let me build upon that. But I do think like global commitments are extremely important for shared vision. But the daily lived reality is very different on the ground, right? And too often I think policies and programs are being designed without the local actors and the affected communities. And that's where I believe design has a role to play, to be that co-creator and start that dialogue and enabling through our way of facilitating that dialogue, collaborate and co-create with the local NGOs and the affected communities and enabling a dialogue, trust and a share ownership.
I wonder, Cecilia, if you could maybe share a little bit more detail about what that dialogue looks like on the ground and how that co-creation process turns into action.
Yeah, sure. So Design for Good, we see designers not only as makers. We see them as facilitators, system thinkers, listeners, observers, and a truly important role to facilitate that dialogue. And just an example, I was talking in reference to the Food Forward Fund project that we just did in Tanzania on the menstrual health educational toolkit. So by being there and working with the affected community, we co-created that idea of sisterhood through that dialogue. And it was an important metaphor to feel that they were more confident, but also making them feel more allowed to have that dialogue with themselves on a topic that is quite taboo. But I also think that dialogue is something that you don't change the world with only dialogue, right? You need to have to translate the insights into actions. And that's also where design has a big role to play, because with dialogue, becomes impact. And I believe truly you do that through continuous engagement with this affected community. So with the Food Forward Fund, they go back every year and they listen and learn again to see how we can optimize the menstrual health toolkits even further. And I believe that is a very strong thing, because that's how impact actually becomes inclusive, action-oriented.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Example.
So, Sandy, please tell me if you have any other insights on, our collective wisdom in the Alliance, what you have learned since you've been here from the very beginning.
Yeah, I'll just offer, and Cecilia shared those case studies. Early on, when you start to think about the big challenges, when we're looking at water and sanitation around the world, when you read the Sustainable Development Goals and the things that we're trying to achieve, you read all the reports on the progress against it, you really have this feeling that big problems need really big solutions. And that actually it feels bigger than any one of us can address. And that feeling, that creates a lot of passivity. It feels like the world is so much bigger than any of us. What I love about what I've seen throughout the teams that are working in this alliance is they're not letting the bigness of the problem overwhelm them. They're saying, what can we do today? What can we do to keep this advancing? And they're using their creativity in order to do that. I love the hand washing flip book, because the first time I saw this team propose that, I had this like, okay, like, you know, but this is a pretty big problem around the world. And a flip book, we're gonna design a flip book. And then actually when you see the results, when you see kids engaging with it, and you see the kinds of impact that just the exposure to that simple solution can make, it's a really good reminder that again and again, these, like, what we need are millions of solutions happening all the time, and we don't have to wait for these big giant solutions to solve the problem. That there are things that we can do from ourselves, from our organizations, in partnership. I think especially you throw some creative people in there and you get like entirely new approaches. So I feel like that's been a learning for me, is just remembering that kind of like simple solutions can create great progress.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, so one insight and building upon that is that what is truly inspiring is when you get, these teams are built up by different organizations that outside of Design for Good, they're actually competitors. But inside of Design for Good, they work to improve life. And bringing their own perspective into this project actually, creates an even more meaningful products and solution. And I think that's really, really important. What we're trying to do also is to build upon an upskill, and what we also hear back from them, right, is that they have such a much more broader mindset and skill set going through this Design for Good Academy, because they have to be much more problem solvers and much more deeper system thinkers, and that's fantastic to see how competitors come to unite in that way.
Yeah. So this model, and I love how you underscored creativity and collaboration. This model really brings together designers from large corporations with development organizations who are working on the ground, and it brings like different skill sets and different viewpoints together. We've got we've got networks of networks galore, which I think is a really fun way to bring a lot of different thinking together to address challenges. But I'm going to kind of slow the point down. It's not always in the education of designers to understand what it means to create in some of these contexts. That they're living in cities, big cities all around the world as part of this network. A lot of them are in, I guess we could say, the global north right now. And so you want to talk a little bit more about the Academy and what kind of learning felt important for today's designers to be in touch with in order to design in these contexts?
Yeah, sure. So even though we have access probably to the world's talented designers, there's something else when you start designing for social environmental good. So we realized in the first cycle on water that we actually needed to educate and upskill the design community. So we started with Royal College of Art in London, an academy where we have been educating over 1,000 designers up until now on what it means to design towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and we train them in life-centered design, how to think more holistically, how to not only focus on human but also a more holistic way of looking at the world to be able to tackle the wicked problems of the United Nations. We learn how do you actually measure success and how do you actually drive impact. So I think those are really important things that we train, and what we hope with the project that they do on the ground and the trainings that we allow them to take, that they actually evolve their mindset and skill sets and take these learnings back into the organizations and create a ripple effect of change. So that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Any build on that?
Yeah, just maybe to say some of the kind of pulling out some of the methods that happen in that curriculum. It's things like developing a theory of impact, understanding what we're designing and why it's going to make a difference. That may not have been in the traditional education of a lot of designers. A lot of times the education includes just a focus on making something beautiful, which is important, but may not be sufficient to create the kind of impact that we're looking to create. What are some of the other things in the course.
Yeah,
Design for life. I feel like pulling some of those things out could be interesting.
Yeah, so basically learning a life-centered approach is to look at the world differently and really understanding the system, the ecosystem of life. So in the case that I was just looking at, presenting on hand washing, it's not only looking at the child who's educated, but also looking at the teachers, but also looking at the parents, but also look at when you're doing that, what effect does that have in the world and for the planet and the planet health. But we also educate them on what it does mean to co-design with affected communities. I see that we're running out of time, so I'm going to leave you with the last question. Yeah. So do you have one single action for this group of listeners today that you would like to give us an advice on women communities or the world?
Such a deep question.
Yes, it's a deep question. It's a deep question.
I guess one thing I would say is to stay curious. I think curiosity is such an important skill. It's a core skill of a designer, how they approach any question. But I think such an important skill, especially in the way the world is operating today. So how can we be curious about each other's lives, the depth of one's experience and the wisdom that brings, no matter what context we're living in and experiencing. And also, it's the same piece. It's the other side of the same piece of advice. Stay committed. There's staying curious and staying committed to the action that we're looking to take and the progress we're looking to make. How about you?
Yeah, it is a tough question, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I would say if it's one question that we all can ask ourselves, it's pretty simple, but quite critical. Who are we missing in our conversations? Because quite often we don't actually have the local actors or that knows more than we do in the needs of the system. And we actually, at most of the times, don't even include nature in that dialogue. So how can we create a more holistic way of doing that through dialogue? So that will be my question back to you. Always ask yourself, who are we missing in this conversation?
Amazing.
Well,
right.
I think we're almost on time. So I would like to thank you, Sandy, for joining in the dialogue. And thank you, everybody, and Rupa for the invitation.
Thank you. All right, thank you.